Dog. Wanted to address something that came up this week from one of those radio stations up there in Massachusetts. I don't get why iHeartRadio, WBZ Radio, is even interviewing a bunch of morons like Mike Crawford from the Young Jerks. He's a moron. Why are they interviewing him? We own them. We're buying ads with them. We got to call up our sales rep. That's ridiculous that they're talking to him. So I'm addressing. They get all mad at us because we bought 7 cop cars in the city of Haverhill, Massachusetts. Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. We bought 7 cop cars in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and we're damn proud of that. Support the boys in blue. MSO gang. It's good business to support the cops up in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and I'll tell you why. When they're leaving our dispensary, our customers, they know for a fact that the Haverhill police aren't going to pull them over and charge them with an OUI when they got Big Daddy Cannabis in the car. We're paying for 7 cop cars. They're not going to bust any of our people. But let me tell you, if you're importing it from the state of Maine or you're buying it from the street, we're advising the mayor to use those cop cars to bust those people, to lock them up. Anyone that's not buying the Big Daddy Cannabis brand should be locked up at this point. They got to support the legal Massachusetts business that is veteran run, veteran owned. Yeah, did I tell you my grandfather was a veteran? Yeah. You got to support us. And if you really want to lower the cost in Massachusetts, number one, you got to stop buying in Maine. And you got to start snitching out your friends that are buying in Maine. And number 3, you got to snitch out your dealer. These dealers are undercutting the prices, they're reducing the taxes, and they're causing us to raise the price even more. So if you really want to reduce the price, help us out. Snitch on your dealer. That's what needs to happen. I'm saying all the stuff that my attorneys and my investors told me not to say. I'm the guy we need in the cannabis industry to tell it straight, say all the things that all the rest of the owners in the industry know deep down, and they agree with me, but they're too afraid to say it.
From day one, when we got started in this industry 8 years ago, that our competition isn't the other cannabis companies, given the underpenetration. For us, the competition is the black market, the illicit market, the drug dealers that are out there peddling, non-regulated product. That is our biggest problem. And in fact, one of the concerns that we had with the more
I don't know what happened, everyone. We crashed. I just shut down and start over.
For a minute, but then I realized it wasn't.
And we're still going. We're live. Well, Welcome, Mike Crawford, Young Jerks. That was strange. I'm going to try to play this video again, maybe in a second. Let's try to play that video one more time. We've been live the whole time, apparently. This is so bizarre what just happened to us. Here it is. I'm going to hopefully try to play the clip. Here it is.
Saying from day one, when we got started in this industry 8 years ago, that our competition isn't the other cannabis companies, given the underpenetration. For us, the competition is the black market, the illicit market, the drug dealers that are out there peddling, non-regulated product. That is our biggest problem. And in fact, one of the concerns that we had with the more
Mike Crawford back live, Young Jerks. I'm not sure what's up with clips tonight. We have a crap load of clips to play, and it doesn't seem to be working on StreamYard. First time I've had this issue, but we'll deal with it. We have a great show. We have some great guests, so I think we'll be fine. We have a lot of topics to talk about. Let's get to the guests. Let's bring up. You saw Lauren Pespisa, so let's bring her up first. What's up, Lauren?
Hey, not much. How you doing?
Good. Welcome back on the show.
Hey, good to see you.
How do you describe yourself in 30 seconds for people that don't know?
Activist, local loudmouth, podcast host sometimes, filmmaker sometimes, perpetual target sometimes. Big fan of cannabis and big fan of not snitching.
Awesome. And also a past Young Jerks co-host.
Yes, I was.
I always love to hold on to that one.
Yep. Also the kids table.
The kids table. Yeah, I was trying to recreate that tonight, but Warren couldn't come on. But we're also going to bring up Chris Goldstein here. My old friend, 20 years at least. I don't know. I've known you forever.
It's been a long time, Mike. It really has. I was thinking about it the other day about how long I've been involved with Normal, which is 1996, 1997 when I started doing some audio podcasting and some news reading from them on the radio. But yeah, it's been a long time, and I've known you. Geez, man, I'm trying to think when we first met. It must have been at least 20 years now. It's pretty amazing.
Yes, and yeah, I've known you even longer than Lauren, which is surprising because Lauren and I are pretty tight. But Chris, Lauren, and myself, all three of us have something in common that just came to my mind, which all three of us have been arrested for drugs. Right?
No one tried harder than I did, though.
Yeah, Chris is a unique situation. You got a felony for cannabis.
I had to really try for mine. I mean, in all the years I've smoked marijuana, I really had to try to get the federal charge. And now that they're actually expunging state level records and stuff, it's pretty funny. I mean, Biden now, I mean, it's been a year. I voted for this guy. I have a federal marijuana possession record. Nothing's happened so far. I really didn't expect to be like sitting around in 2022 with this record still on me.
It's crazy. And it was because, it was a protest to make things legal. I think people should be aware of that, is that you put things on the line and you got a federal felony for this cause.
I didn't get a felony. I got a misdemeanor.
I thought it was a felony.
Poe got a felony. Poe got a felony for resisting for resisting being tackled by a team of National Park Service officers, which he didn't resist very well, I might add. So, because he did get taken into custody and put into the federal detention center for 5 days. But that's all an aside. You guys, you got arrested in Massachusetts? Is that where it happened?
Yeah, before decrim.
Wow. Really? I mean, I remember the Boston Freedom Rally, and the police department used to come out and go around and bust hundreds of people. I mean, they would arrest hundreds of people. They had their processing tent. It was such a big change after decrim in 2008. I mean, after that, they would come out and annoy people, and then there was less and less annoyance. It was pretty amazing.
And we have another great guest. This is pretty wild to have him on the show after what happened over the last year. All the things he's done in Maine, state of Maine, and then he had a moped accident. I think it was in the Bahamas, was it? Let's find out. Or Bermuda. What's up, Dawson Julia?
Yeah, man. Hey, is this thing still working? Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
You're moving around a little bit, though. I would leave it, leave it in one spot for us.
Right on. Yeah. It's been good. I've been healing in the last 7 months, and doing a lot of work with the physical trainers and the OTs and just crap like that. But I'm on the road to recovery, and I'm also director of the coalition
for medical cannabis in Maine.
Maine Cannabis Coalition, right?
Awesome. We started with a clip that didn't really come through. Dawson, we may have to. I don't know. You're gonna have to stop moving that phone, or we're gonna have to shut you down.
Oh,
the sound is killing us.
Okay, I apologize.
We're gonna mute it, and hopefully you figure it out. We'll do that. Where basically we started off tonight talking about Curaleaf. We played a little a parody. I don't know if people realize that's a parody, but then we tried to play the Curaleaf clip, and they kind of say the same thing as the parody. There's two different executives we found videos of from Curaleaf. Their executives have called their street competition drug dealers. I figured we'd start with that tonight. I mean, it's it's, to me, at this point, there is no justice in the cannabis space unless you go to a state like Maine, because, look at Massachusetts. The cannabis companies have spent more money on cops than they have actually expunging people's records, doing any sort of restorative justice, which we're going to talk about later in the show. What do you all say about a company like Curaleaf, who calls their street competition drug dealers? Why don't we go with Chris first?
Well, I mean, this is the rhetoric that's being used by a lot of industry operators today. We're going to focus on Curaleaf probably a bunch today in the show because of that video clip and some other stuff that's going on. But let's make it clear that Columbia Care and a lot of the other national cannabis brands tout this same line. It's also the same stuff that we see with them opposing home cultivation, anything that might threaten their marketplace. But the idea that their biggest competition is traditional market cannabis suppliers is laughable. Their biggest competition is themselves. They are pricing themselves away from most of their customers. Here in New Jersey, Curaleaf prices are $200 to $400 an ounce, which at the low end, if it's available and if it's on discount, maybe that's reasonable for some patients. But in Curaleaf in Ellsworth, Maine, they sell ounces for $75 to $120. That's not with a discount. And what's weird is that wasn't a Curaleaf until a couple of years ago. They actually bought out a company called Maine Organic Therapies. So Maine Organic Therapies, they're $75, $120 ounces. That was like their everyday deal. Now Curaleaf bought that company. They've put the brand on it. You can look up the menu on their website. But it's next to dispensaries in New Jersey and other states where Curaleaf is charging $300 and $400 an ounce. So now it's 2022. These national cannabis brands have a new responsibility. If they want to buy up dispensaries in multiple states, and if state regulators are going to allow that to happen, we need them to have a normalized and uniform price structure for patients. If they can get away with selling an ounce of weed in Maine for $130, that's what the low end price should be right here in New Jersey. Otherwise, we call that price gouging. And in other products, like if Walgreens, yes, it's way more expensive to operate a Walgreens in New Jersey than it probably is in Maine. But Walgreens doesn't charge 3 times as much for the aspirin in New Jersey than it does in Maine. And if national cannabis brands want to get taken seriously, if they really want to be taken seriously as a healthcare provider, especially in this modern age, they need to normalize that price structure, and it's out of reach. It's not drug dealers that are their competition. It's their own greed.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up question on that too. Curaleaf execs call their street competition drug dealers. Do you think that causes actual real harm to people in the outside world?
Certainly, Curaleaf and the large corporate cannabis companies, the ones that own all the permits, they have a fair amount of political clout with state legislators and mayors and local officials. If they say, hey, I think that marijuana dealers are hurting our dispensary business, they might see some action on that. And while possession's legal here in New Jersey, selling marijuana in large amounts, at least at the amounts that a dispensary would, certainly isn't. They haven't really cracked down on this. There's a number of delivery services available in New Jersey right now. They've more threatened them with the Department of Consumer Affairs and said, hey, if you keep doing this, we're going to mess with your taxes and stuff like that, which is pretty threatening if you're a small business or an average person. So I don't know. Curaleaf does, and these large companies do have clout. If they're out there sicking law enforcement dogs on local marijuana entrepreneurs, that is not helping people transition into a pathway of legitimacy here. That's not helping local small businesses. That's shutting it down before it can start.
What's funny too is Joe Lasardo, another Curaleaf exec, in another recent, maybe a couple of years ago, an interview he did with Bloomberg. So he's talking to a business network, and he turns around and says those street dealers only want to get you high and make a lot of money. And I just thought about, here's a guy on Bloomberg saying that, what's he on Bloomberg for? To get people high and make a lot of money. I mean, he's so full of shit.
Well, look, Mike, these companies also have a well-oiled plan. They're hitting all the notes with legislators and law enforcement and people like that. We have to push back against this because while they're saying this on Bloomberg, they're also telling legislators, oh, social equity. The corporate cannabis providers are the pathway to equity. We're going to mentor all these small businesses before we buy them out. We're going to mentor them before we buy them out. We're going to help them before we buy them out. We're going to help them do all these things. We are the corporate powerhouse. To me, that's like asking if I wanted to start a pizzeria in New Jersey, I'd have to go through Domino's. Like, that's a joke, right?
Yeah,
Seriously.
Seriously.
Like, we don't run small business like that. And the concept of running small cannabis business like this is going to fall flat. Let me tell you what the good ideas are. New Mexico, where I used to live for 10 years, I lived in Santa Fe. So New Mexico legalized marijuana, and they have a strong sense of how to vitalize their business community. And you don't do that by sending your small businesses to a bunch of banks or predatory hedge fund investors for 40% returns and stuff like that. You give them loans and grants from the economic development department. It's like that simple. So New Mexico allotted $5 million in economic development loans to go out to small business. New Mexico is not well funded in this regard for any small businesses. So $5 million is like drop in the bucket for this stuff. New Jersey, we have an economic development agency that is like on par with some European banks in size. I'm not even kidding around by that. We flush hundreds of millions of dollars in state and federal funds through our EDA out to small businesses every single year. Why can't we send that same pathway out to cannabis small businesses?
That's right.
So this is the way, okay? We need to stop asking for banking because that's a joke for small businesses in any category today, let alone marijuana businesses. And we need to stop acting like corporate mentors are a path forward for any small business, unless you really just want to sell out, which is fine. This is America. It's a sellout country. But, I don't want to cut anybody off from that. But still, if we want to fulfill the promise of equity, that's not the way.
And I'm unmuting Dawson. Dawson, what do you say on this about Curaleaf execs calling their street competition drug dealers? Oh, he's still on mute.
Maybe he muted himself.
Yeah, I think you might be unplugged there, Dawson. Now, let's go to Lauren. What do you have to say on this, Lauren?
Well, I guess this is just an example of everything that everyone feared when passing legalization. You have the big corporate entities coming in and sort of the corrupt form of capitalism, which isn't really free market. It's this sort of corruption revolving door into legislation, and that is sort of turning it into, price gouging. And it's really clearly they're not thinking of the patients or the consumers. I mean, there really isn't anything wrong with wanting to supply a very, very safe recreational drug that's never killed anyone and wanting to make some money doing that. However, when you are sticking law enforcement on other people who are doing the same thing, that is completely anti-free market and corrupt. And so this is everything that we fear in Massachusetts, and it's almost a parody of itself. You did a parody, but it wasn't hard to make that jump. I'm like, wait, is this what they said? Oh, okay, maybe that's Mike. But it sounded about right. And this is what happens when a new industry forms, where everyone that doesn't actually care about the product or the medicine actually gets involved and just screws everything up. So
you're giving away secrets tonight because a lot of people, I don't know, they didn't catch it.
It's not,
Maybe they didn't catch that. Dawson, your mic is very loud.
It says that I got muted.
Yeah, you're unmuted now, and you're very loud, but you're not.
Okay, I apologize.
We're gonna try you later. This isn't working out with your mic. I don't know what's going on, man.
Okay, I apologize.
I'm sorry. No worries. We'll work it out. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what's going on.
Let me just say, Dawson's an awesome dude,
Yes.
and I'm really, really glad to see him alive and talking to us after all the world and everything. It's so awesome to see you here, man, and I hope we can get you back on the show.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. So that's why we're definitely sticking with you, even though we're not happy with your sound. Even if we just have to look at you and wave, it's like we're happy to have you. We have some comments already. Let's just throw them up there. All hail Queen Lauren is one of the first ones. Here's one. What's up, Dawson? Welcome back, bud, from Randall. A lot of people are talking about Dawson right now. Keep pushing, Dawson is another one. You're an amazing soul. Another Facebook user writes, faithfully watching from Beantown. Hashtag Young Jerks for the win. Rachel, a friend of the show, writes, I've never had an opportunity to purchase legal weed. Thank God for those that Curaleaf claims are drug dealers. They are war heroes.
Right.
Hashtag end the drug war. I guess, one of the other things I wanted to talk about related is big cannabis, because, these guys from Curaleaf were talking about how the street dealers are untested and how it's so dangerous. But we keep seeing this issue in Massachusetts where it's the big cannabis that we're worried about with the mold. Mold is everywhere. Every time we turn over a rock at one of these dispensaries, we find employees telling us about how much mold there is there. There's so many that we haven't even reported on, that we've received reports on. It just dozens. There are dozens. I know for a fact that there are dozens of dispensaries open in Massachusetts right now with permits that are full of mold. And one of the ones we definitely know is Strane. Strane is Holistic Industries. The Cannabis Control Commission just recently conducted a virtual mold investigation. Let me say that again. They virtually investigated them for mold.
What does that mean? Hold on.
Cleared them.
Does that mean that they investigate them in the Matrix, or they investigate them like here?
I think that what that means is, I think that what that means is that they're covering it up. And number one, and number two, they're admitting how dangerous it was. That it's so dangerous at this work environment that they won't send the Cannabis Control Commission employees in there because they're worried about their safety from the mold. But yet, there are minimum wage workers at Strane, at Holistic Industries in Monson, working there every single day, and they don't care about them.
Well, do you have any unionized dispensaries in Massachusetts yet?
We do, but not. Yes, we do, but Strane is not unionized. And it's so funny because the reason I'm bringing this up right now, I want to make sure people get the final part of this, is that since the virtual investigation ended, right? Since the CCC cleared them and didn't answer any of the Monson, like the town officials in Monson, the Board of Health, they wanted answers from the Cannabis Control Commission. They wanted answers from Holistic Industries. They had a series of questions, and they got a finger back from the Cannabis Control Commission. I saw the email that they got back, and it was like, we virtually investigated, we test, it's all set, they're all fine. And since then, and just in general, if you go to the largest Reddit group dedicated to cannabis in Massachusetts, that's Boston Trees, and just put a search there for strain mold or netta mold. And what you'll find is just dozens and dozens. Every single day, there's someone else that's complaining about the moldy weed they just picked up from the dispensary.
Yeah, this is interesting, Mike, because these companies have also gone to bat to essentially like relax the mold testing requirements in other states. Pennsylvania was one of them this year. So they actually raised the amount of mold that you can put into products in Pennsylvania. The other weird thing that they did this year, and these were the large national brands, that came together or lobbied for this legislation. They wanted to be able to remediate moldy flower into oil and then sell the oil to patients as long as it had a label saying it was remediated. And they got away with that. They allow that in Pennsylvania. Another weird thing that happened recently was, there was a big recall in Michigan. And one of the state laboratories, get this, a couple of former police forensic guys got together and started up a marijuana testing laboratory. And everybody thought, it's a couple of cops. They must be trustworthy, right? So they started up a lab, and they got like 1/4 of the state's regulated weed coming through there. And it turns out they were sending moldy weed out to customers. This is in the adult use market. So Michigan issued the largest recall ever of marijuana in the state, and the lab pushed back. So did the providers. They said, well, maybe it's moldy, but let us have the weed and sell it to people with a label that says, it might be moldy. And they got away with that. So the regulators in Michigan tried to issue a recall. The laboratory and the manufacturers fought back in court and got a judge to put an injunction on the recall, basically. And they got to sell their moldy weed as long as it had a label. So, yeah, moldy weed is something obviously that the industry has a problem with. Look, the more we complain about it, the more they're lobbying legislators just to have the moldy weed. I mean, it's have you ever seen stinky tofu and how they, how they make stinky tofu over in China? That's what's the weed is starting to look. It's starting to look like stinky tofu. This is not
It's
cool,
ridiculous.
okay?
And you know what's so funny is,
by the way, if you
the
pickle
judge,
marijuana, the THC comes out. So don't make stinky tofu marijuana, okay?
the judge actually putting the label that there's mold on it is like an improvement. I would love to see that in Massachusetts. at least they're being honest, so that this is what pisses me off. People don't realize what's in this product. They think it's safe, not labeled that there's mold in it, and they open it up and they smell it, or they smoke it first, and then they realize there's mold in this product, and it happens all the time. I'm gonna try going back to Dawson again. Should we? What do you guys think? We have to, right? He's a legend.
Is he there? I'm gonna mute myself.
Turn my mic on.
You sound good now. Don't move. Just talk.
This is what Curaleaf lobbies for up in Maine, and they passed a law that basically makes it so that if you can't get a test within 5 days, then your product is ready to go on the shelf, as long as it's labeled, this product has not been tested. So you can imagine every product in Maine adult use program is untested. It's just the way it is. And there's only one lab in Maine that's registered to test. And it's one of the games they play. They know they can't test it, and they don't want to wait. So they made a law to make it look good. And basically, it goes hand in hand. It's what they do up here best, is make laws. And you got problems when that stuff's happening.
Awesome. I want to go back to Chris Goldstein now. Chris, we want to talk, basically about you filed with the state of New Jersey a consumer complaint against Curaleaf.
Yeah, sure did.
Tell us about that, what it's about, and where it stands.
Okay, so for regular stuff, consumers have price protections. If you drive past a gas station one day and the price is $4 a gallon, you drive past the next day, it's $10 a gallon. You can contact in New Jersey, it's part of the Attorney General's office. It's called the Division of Consumer Affairs. You can call and say, hey, I think there might be price gouging happening. So when New Jersey patients got access to Curaleaf's menu and were able to see the Ellsworth, Maine location menu at $75 and $115 per ounce, and look at the menu in New Jersey at $200 to $400 an ounce, we thought, could be price gouging. So we filed a price gouging complaint, and we got a very somewhat predictable but interestingly worded response back from the Division of Consumer Affairs. And they pointed out that medical marijuana is not price regulated in New Jersey. Interesting enough, medical marijuana isn't really price regulated anywhere. And that may be the problem we're having for small businesses and for consumers and patients in 2022. So other stuff like big commodities, corn, fish, electricity, gasoline, these have price controls on them that operate with floors and ceilings. So you have caps to make sure that prices don't inflate too high for consumers, but you have floors to make sure there isn't an engineered or real market crash that wipes out small businesses. So with price controls on things like farm commodities, we've prevented the crash of American farms. And at the same time, you don't pay $10 for an ear of corn. We might need the same level of price controls today in the cannabis marketplace. Price floors protect small businesses. You know, $20 ounces are really not sustainable for small businesses in Oregon, but that's what's happening today. On the other hand, in New Jersey, $400 ounces are not sustainable for working class consumers. So now prices are at a real extreme for regulated cannabis in America, at a bigger extreme than they ever were in the underground market. Like, what was weird about prohibition was that marijuana prices were like largely uniform across the country. Ounce of weed costs $300 in Cleveland. It costs $300 in Charlotte. It costs $300 in Austin. It was a little cheaper in California. But that was about it for like 30 years. But today in the regulated market, you can look at menus on the West Coast and even in Maine sometimes with ounces at a very low price. Oregon being the extreme example at like $20 and $40 an ounce. But again, in New Jersey, even in Pennsylvania, where there are dozens of running dispensaries, all of them owned by corporate cartel permit holders, all of these dispensaries are at $300 and $400 an ounce.
That's still Massachusetts. That's Massachusetts right now in the recreation. Still $350 to $400 an ounce.
Well,
with
and
hundreds of stores.
That's unreachable for working class consumers. And on other stuff, like even when they adjust the price of alcohol or adjust the tax on cigarettes, they contact consumers. They have a dialogue with consumers about what they can endure in pricing. No such dialogue exists for medical marijuana patients or regular cannabis consumers. Officials are guessing at prices. Dispensaries and permit holders are being as greedy as they possibly can. But again, the idea that Curaleaf CEO is out there saying that his biggest competition are traditional marketplace dealers out there is totally laughable. Because if you look at if Curaleaf's menu at every one of their locations matched their Ellsworth, Maine location, if they sold ounces for 75, and this is the saddest part, honestly, because I don't want to help Curaleaf, but if they did, if they managed to get it through their heads that if they sold the $100 ounce at every one of their locations in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, that there'd be lines around the block for their product. Jeez.
And they'd put the street dealers out of business. They would put them out of business.
It would be a hard game for the local dealers at that point. If corporate, and this is what I always, honestly, 10 years ago, Lauren, you were right. Like 10 years ago, we were all like, oh, geez, man, it's all going to get co-opted by corporations. It's going to suck. But people ask me, they're like, well, what's the good side of corporate marijuana? I said, well, $50 ounces. You know, large organizations, you know, maybe they'll do it, right? Never. They're too freaking greedy. They don't get it.
Well, you know, they do it in Maine. That's what I want to find out, why they do it in Maine.
Well, you know, because they bought Maine Organic Therapies, and the Ellsworth, Maine population can't sustain an ounce more than. I mean, dude, you ever been to Ellsworth? Yeah. I mean, I've been to Ellsworth. It's right outside Bar Harbor. It is not like a luxury community. It's a real working class community. Maine Organic Therapies had a business serving patients in Ellsworth. Those patients cannot freaking afford $400 ounces. They would not have an operation in Ellsworth if they raised their prices that high. It's that simple.
And there's competition too. I mean, there's a lot of people selling
not near
much
Ellsworth. There isn't much competition in Ellsworth. It's pretty kind of remote up there. It really is.
We're gonna bring Dawson back up for a second. Dawson, do you have anything to add on this?
You guys would probably find it interesting to know that both Wellness Connection, Acreage Holdings, it trades on the stock market as Acreage Holdings, but Wellness Connection and Curaleaf both got pesticide violations by the state of Maine in the first year that they were inspected. And I don't know if that can use the evidence against them or what. But, you know, it's on the record in Maine. These guys use pesticides.
It was Curaleaf, and who else was there? Another company?
Wellness Connection, which trades
Okay.
on the stock market as Acreage Holdings, and
Thank you.
they were both like literally slapped on the wrist. They
Just like Massachusetts.
Yeah, basically the patients had to deal with it, and the dispensaries had like no recourse. The only thing they had for punishment was they couldn't use concentrates for anything. Concentrates to make edibles or anything like that. And that lasted for a year. And then after that, that went away. So, they were supposed to lose their license. It was
Serious offense.
yeah, it was a serious offense, and they didn't. Now we're actually in Maine. We're suing the state of Maine, the coalition is, and we're suing them because they're refusing to follow their own laws. They're not enforcing the laws, and the main law we're talking about is the residency. In Maine, you have to be a resident of Maine, which is determined by 3 years or more of taxes paid in Maine. And if you don't have that, then you're not supposed to play in Maine until you have it. And they're not enforcing that law. We're suing them. It should be a battle, but
Thank you, Dawson.
yeah.
No, that's a really interesting thing right there. Dawson's been doing good work. Wellness Connection, so everybody knows. The state of Maine, it was trying to fulfill the promise of equity. And one of the easy ways you could try and do that is by having residency requirements for the permits. Maine was saying, hey, we're not going to give you an adult use permit unless you're an actual Maine resident. Our first round of permits is going to go out to Maine residents. Wellness Connection fought the Craft Cannabis Coalition. They went to the legislature. The legislature turned them down. They were like, hey, no, we really want Maine residents to sell the weed. Instead, Wellness Connection went to federal freaking court and won a ruling that brought the residency requirements into question. But they weren't the only one. Similar corporate operators went to federal court in Missouri just a few weeks later and got a similar ruling. So here's my advice to states if they're confused. They were ignoring a bunch of federal laws, like, the Controlled Substances Act. They were ignoring that happily. They were ignoring those federal laws. They were ignoring any rulings related to those federal laws. So when it comes to these court rulings recently, I think they should ignore them. I think that Maine should press ahead and use its residency requirement. If they're going to ignore all these federal laws, they need to ignore the ones that are trying to injunct their action. And my suggestion to states and regulators is to keep ignoring federal laws. Just keep doing it for now until we change them, and then they'll be more appealing.
Lauren, you got anything you want to throw in this conversation right now?
I second that motion for federal court to start ignoring federal laws. I also feel that if the state was, I think generally the state's been trying to do something better for the people of Maine than the federal court system has, besides the ignoring it. But I think that, I don't know. It's hard because Maine's also you can just get a vacation home in Maine and pay taxes on it and never live there except 1 month a year for the past 10 years because you're a rich business owner and you have a residency technically, right? So how much are these residency requirements actually even
Well, they're not. They're not even enforcing them. So that's not even a question.
Even if that's the residency requirement, I can still see so many rich people
loopholes.
that have
Absolutely.
multinational cannabis companies that have a vacation home in Maine for 10 years and they're technically residents.
Or a cousin that they just put on the business that lived in Maine.
I understand the intent of it, but I also feel it's extremely hard to enforce. Which in general, when laws are hard to enforce, that makes
absolutely
problems.
All right. Well,
I also want to, before we leave the topic of Curaleaf, I have to say again, one of the weird things about them is when they talk, they want to get taken seriously as like national healthcare companies. And one of the things that I testified last week before the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission, and they were adopting the special waiver for COVID-19. And 2 years ago, they granted dispensaries essential status, and they also allowed them to perform curbside pickup here in New Jersey, along with all kinds of other special rules. It turns out none of them really operate. Maybe one or two occasionally operate curbside pickup, but it's not consistently available. Moreover, there really isn't any information on how often staff at dispensaries have gotten COVID-19, or how often the dispensaries have closed even temporarily, or if they've closed at all. You know, it would be hard to think that the dispensaries of New Jersey shouldn't have had to close a few times because of COVID-19. It's hard to imagine that their staff is completely without infection. But patients, caregivers, even the staff at these dispensaries, these companies, in my opinion, haven't been as responsible as they should be. Regulators also have given themselves special waivers. I mean, these dispensaries should be like an experiment in just how safe you can be. There should be delivery. There should be pickup. There should be all these options available. And quite frankly, I know this may sound unpopular to some listeners, but it's my opinion that in Philadelphia, you need proof of vaccination to go into a restaurant. I think that you should probably have that for a medical marijuana dispensary.
With
and
patients,
for those,
especially for patients. I mean,
patients,
come on.
caregivers, and staff. You should be able to go in the dispensary without proof of vaccination.
So they don't have that, and they don't have that in Massachusetts. All the things that you're talking about, the same in Massachusetts.
Right.
The only time we've ever found out about dispensaries closing down to COVID-19 is, myself or others finding it on their social media. Yeah, and then posting it everywhere. Like, oh, look, Rev Clinic's closed down again, another COVID outbreak. It doesn't come from
closed because they were out of employees to work that day.
True.
Not because anyone made them.
Jeez.
Right? Like it wasn't like an enforced thing. It's because we just literally don't have.
They don't have any employees. They're all sick.
Yeah,
that's
coming. We're not here. Like,
but again, patients come last. That's what we're hearing about. Massachusetts and New Jersey. Maine seems a lot better. I want to go to this one too, because this is again from Chris Goldstein. Breaking news on Twitter. If you don't follow Chris on Twitter, you should. It's at Freedom is Green. He's writing about Senator Scutari. He writes, Senator Scutari's New Jersey's upcoming Senate president and sponsor of marijuana laws told a webinar audience yesterday he doesn't expect home cannabis cultivation. He's not supporting it, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he's not just not supporting it. So Scutari just ascended to being the Senate president today, as a matter of fact. And he takes over for Steve Sweeney, who got wildly lost an election to a Republican. And Sweeney was seen as a very powerful Democrat in Trenton. What's interesting about Sweeney and Scutari is that they went hand in hand on the New Jersey legalization legislation. And those two, for the last couple of years, have poo-pooed any concept of home grow. No home grow, no home grow. So oddly enough, New Jersey legalized marijuana, but we didn't legalize gardens in the garden state. And I don't know, dude, we have bills. We have a bill for medical patients to possibly grow 4 to 6 plants at home. We have another bill from Senator Vin Gopal, which would possibly legalize home cultivation for everyone. But this is Senator Scutari. He's now the Senate president. He is again saying he's against home grow. And his reasoning was it might hurt the nascent recreational industry. He says he's heard these things in Colorado. And maybe like 10 years ago, when the plant count was 99 plants per household instead of 12, maybe Colorado regulators told him that there was some sort of big diversion problem. But that's certainly not true today in Colorado. In fact, I looked it up and they just aren't even seizing that many marijuana plants in Colorado anymore. It's kind of amazing. But what Scutari is getting at here is that New Jersey residents, especially medical marijuana patients even, nobody can grow at home because companies, big companies, we're expected to just go there and purchase our marijuana. And this is what's weird. I was asking you about this the other day, Mike, because you're up there in Massachusetts. It's probably pretty easy for you to go to Maine. I mean, do these regulators and companies really expect us to stay right within our state when we can get a 50% discount with a reasonable drive?
And
What
better product. And a better
planet are
product.
they on?
Yeah,
Well,
and
you know,
to me, it's a better product. And you know what, Chris?
oh, it's
too,
a very yeah.
You know, if you notice my Facebook this week, they get very mad when we talk about this. They don't like us talking about this. Like I'm a
Who's that?
bad man for telling patients about Maine. I'm very
Oh,
bad.
go to Maine. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, come on, folks. I mean, I tell New Jersey patients to go to Maine, honestly. You know, the dispensaries here are crowded and they're expensive. And honestly, if you can afford to make the time and the trip up to Maine to get a month's supply of medical cannabis, it is the much more reasonable choice for New Jersey patients. I mean, who can afford $300 an ounce? Especially, you know, I'm encountering a lot of families out there. They're one of the most taboo subjects, and it still is, which is odd, is that a lot of teenagers, we're talking like 15 to 19-year-olds, are medical cannabis patients now for health and mental health conditions. So you're talking about whole families. So mom, dad, son, and daughter are all patients. $300 an ounce does not work for a working class family. I mean, these families have to go to Maine to get $100 an ounce to be able to supply their entire family with medical cannabis. It's simply unaffordable to do so otherwise. So, you know, that's another key component here, is that I think whole families are patients now. It's you know, sons and fathers, mothers and daughters. It's not just one patient at a time. 10 years ago, there'd be one medical cannabis patient in a household. Now it's the entire household. So how do we make that more affordable? That's the real question.
It's funny because in Massachusetts, it's been a lot of talk about social equity and, you know, just all. There's been no talk about restorative justice. There's been no talk about how much the police have profited off of cannabis above all else. It's not people of color. It's not black men. It's not black women. It's not people who've been busted. It's police. They're getting details, huge details. New England Treatment Access alone has paid millions of dollars to the police department there.
What are they
in
paying
Brooklyn.
for? Like protection money?
Details.
Is this
details.
like straight up protection money?
And this exactly what it is, because, you know, and because I talk to a lot of the employees, and, you know, these police aren't there off hours where the dispensary could actually get looted. They're not actually there to protect the dispensary. They're just there to charge for a detail when the dispensary is open, number one. Number two, you know, like you talked about, so many police have gotten into the business. Every dispensary has an ex-cop, not everyone, but a lot of them, probably a third of them, have an ex-cop on payroll who's now the head of security. I mean, these cops are making a lot of money off of cannabis. They're getting new cop cars, and, you know, this is a joke. There's no real plan.
You know, I wonder,
in Brookline and Newton, and, you know, we're talking places where, like, you know, pretty much they could hire a regular person to, you know, help direct traffic into the parking lot, which is at most what they do. This is not, you know, this is not a situation that requires like armed law enforcement. So
I've been around some Massachusetts dispensaries. They don't look like they're in bad neighborhoods. Everybody's happy and friendly. I've really never felt anything but totally safe around these places. Yeah. And some of them are like, I noticed there's one in Worcester that's like right across from the police station. So it's like they don't need a detail there. They can just look out the window and see the dispensary. That's one of the creepiest things about today, though. I think that cannabis consumers and medical marijuana patients, we have to be more careful about our privacy. You know, that's a big thing about 2022. I saw, and, you know, in New Jersey, because dispensaries aren't regulated yet, there's a lot of sort of gray market services. And I saw a gray market medical marijuana dispensary pop up today, and they want you to upload all of your information, but they're not a regulated dispensary. So, like, on one hand, it's awesome that they're serving patients. On the other hand, it's not awesome that they're collecting their information like that. That's pretty scary, actually. So we really are in, I think, a very dangerous time for consumers and patients. Our data is really being sought after by everybody. It's being sold. Big companies like Curaleaf and Columbia Care, they're not covered by HIPAA. You know, there's no Health Insurance Privacy Protection Act for your data with these companies. Your data is for sale. Your medical marijuana data is for sale every day in this industry. And there needs to be some legislation to stop that. But large companies too, like Curaleaf, you know, the way that they operate is simply to pump and dump their stock. They are, when you say they're not out there for patients, that guy is out there doing a media appearance to try and get his stock to go up just a little bit today. That's it. These people weren't in marijuana 10 years ago. They won't be in marijuana 10 years from now. That's the whole. Well, I mean, I don't think so. We've seen such consolidation in the last few years. I mean, geez, people who were in marijuana 5 years ago aren't in it today.
That's
And
right.
they were funded with hundreds of millions of dollars. They had press releases and grand ribbon cutting openings. They're gone.
I mean, there's local dispensary chains that we know of that we heard the rumors that they were for sale a few years ago. But then what happened? All the stocks went down. All the cannabis stocks dropped. So I agree with you. I think a lot of these big dispensary chains are just waiting until those stock prices go up and they can get the big bailouts. You know, they can sell to it.
They're not
Consolidation.
Go up they're not going to go up anytime soon. They're really.
I know.
They've reached a saturation point, and until we accept a couple of things, I'll tell you what they're pushing for in New Jersey. Large cannabis permit holders are looking to have a bill that would have medical insurance subsidize cannabis, which would, on one hand, on the concept, I like it. Patients could go and get an ounce of marijuana for a copay. If you dig deeper into that, though, taxpayers and patients are going to get a bad deal if it's a $400 ounce that's getting a copay on. So if they want to be taken seriously as a healthcare company, if they want to get medical insurance to pay for their products, we need price transparency and price controls. We need to know how much it costs to manufacture it, how much of a markup we can give them with the subsidy, and we need price controls across the country on corporate-sized businesses. The other thing about price, go ahead, yeah.
Do we have anything like that in anything medical at all right now? Even, any medicine right now? I mean, this is something that's an issue in all of
everybody.
You're right.
So
you're right, but we've come a long way. I mean, now there is price transparency on hospital bills. That's what's pushing hospital bills down. All these things you're absolutely right. This was an endemic problem. Corporate cartels are a problem, not just in marijuana. The reason that we're experiencing corporate cartels in marijuana is because it's a well-played system in other businesses. So there are corporate cartels in tuna fish, maple syrup, eggs. The White House had a press conference last year about a corporate cartel in meat packing that was raising prices on everything.
We have it in insulin.
Oh yeah, that's huge. That's why a lot of the inflation went up.
Well, this is the point, though, is that marijuana, while those other issues are even larger industries that are more complex and more dug in politics, marijuana is a new industry. So the usual corporate tactics stink even worse when you see them here. You can see it right on the surface. You can't hide it. There's no hiding the bullshit of the corporate cartels and how they operate marijuana. I think it should wake people up and say, if this is how business is done with marijuana, and this is how business is being done elsewhere, we have to change how we do business in America. Like that is a base problem, is how corporations shut everybody out and how we're losing to that at every level as consumers. But again, on other issues, we've come around on this. If we didn't regulate gasoline, and OPEC is not a perfect cartel, but we're not paying $12 a gallon for our gasoline today. If we didn't regulate eggs and other commodities, those corporations could get away with price gouging, and we'd be paying $20 a carton for our eggs right now.
But we have this specifically in the medical field. We have this specifically with things like insulin, things like life-saving drugs that.
But those are kind of new, though. I mean, insulin's even new.
But there's a new concept there to control those prices, Lauren. You're right. People were freaked out by Pharma Bro jacking up the price of AIDS.
That's right.
People were freaked out by the EpiPen prices going up so high in the last 5 years. That freaked people out so hard that they made them start thinking, oh man, I gotta, politicians too. politicians are medical consumers. And
Right.
I think there are more politicians that are paying $300 an ounce for their medical marijuana unhappily too these days, quite frankly. So, price controls are something that affect all Americans. Politicians are Americans too, and they don't like paying a lot of money for their consumer products just like anybody else.
I guess where I want to wrap this cannabis conversation up is, how do we fix these issues, Chris? And I'm going to ask Dawson too, because you guys are both like right in the thick of this stuff. How do we fix all the issues we talked about tonight? Protected patients, data privacy, but especially the costs. And how do we get them to take it seriously like they take insulin? Like this is I think a lot of people don't get that this is medicine for a lot of people. This isn't just like, do I buy a candy bar today or not? This is, I need this medicine and it's costing me so much money I can't afford it. So I'm going to have to go back on the oxycodone. How do we get them to take this seriously? I guess let's go to Dawson first. He hasn't spoken in a while. We'll bring him up. Dawson, what do you got for us?
Thank you. I would say this is the way to do it. Go on the offense. Don't play defense. Play offense. And I'll tell you how we got rid of the pharmaceutical companies in Maine. Were all testifying against marijuana bills. Every marijuana bill that came forward, they were all against it, and we shut them down. It was basically my testimony that happened. One of the lobbyists called me out and told the commission that my testimony was unscientific and not proven, and basically demoralized my whole testimony. And I wrote a letter to all the representatives the next day, and I copied everybody on the email, including the lobbyists who said bad stuff about me. And I wrote to them all, and I said, here's the proof that the studies I showed you were scientific. And I got follow back emails from a bunch of members and saying thank you. And the pharma companies haven't messed with anything since 2012 in Maine. And it's because we went on the offense instead of the defense. I'll give you another example. One thing we did was the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, was previously the attorney general for Maine. And I went to her and I told her, we don't have money for an addict, to go rehab in a bed or whatever. There's no low money income programs, and it was a big problem in Maine apparently. And what I did was I convinced Janet Mills, who was then the district attorney, the attorney general. I convinced her to sue the pharmaceutical companies, and she not only sued them, but she convinced a lot of other states. There was like 40 something states that jumped into this lawsuit, and we screwed their shit all up, and
I love it. Go on the offense, screw up all their shit up. I love it. Thank you, Dawson.
And then
Yeah.
we never saw them again.
Offense.
Like, they don't mess with us anymore.
Let's go back to Chris Goldstein. Chris, let's get you back up here.
Yeah,
what's your final thoughts on all this? How do we get some change?
We need price controls. I know it sounds scary to some folks, but I think that price controls are going to be the answer to helping small businesses and helping consumers. And honestly, we have them in place for all kinds of consumer goods every day. We need them in place for cannabis too. I'm talking about price controls for corporate cannabis. Unless we have an Occupy Wall Street kind of a moment in Congress, we're not going to get these corporations out completely. So they need to be managed differently. So I think that if you're going to be an industrial multi-state cannabis operator, you need to be under price floors and price ceilings. It's that simple. Because Wellness Connection and what they're doing up in Maine, they could also crash markets. They could start selling marijuana lower than craft operators, and that's what's happening, and it could be happening in Oregon. So price floors, price ceilings on corporate cannabis allow craft operators to have a freer market, but put price controls in place for corporate operators. Don't let them get away with corporate greed with multi-state operations, but also, force the market to manage those corporations. As far as safety and such goes, oh man, we've got to go a far way on that, Mike. It's time for these medical marijuana laws to truly evolve, because in the last 2 years of the pandemic, I think more people are actually using cannabis therapy in America today. Like I said, whole families are now patients. So we not only am I asking, everybody out there to take it more seriously as far as regulators and legislators, think about it in your own life. Think about how you use cannabis. Be mindful about it. And then think about how you can take that approach to the rest of the world and say, hey, look, if this is an important medical therapy, I need to be able to afford it. I need to have regularly lab tested, high quality product at an affordable price. That's the trade-off of legalization. Otherwise, what's it worth?
Yeah, with no mold.
It's got to be high quality, affordable, lab tested product. Otherwise, we have had a traditional market that doesn't have any of those things. We could pay $400 an ounce for untested good weed anywhere in America today. But the pact with the law and the public on legalization is supposed to be high quality, lab tested, affordable weed. And they're not delivering that, I don't think, anywhere right now, really.
And they're not, in Massachusetts, the Cannabis Control Commission will always go back that it's lab tested. So therefore, no mold gets to the customer. It's all lab tested. But we know that mold is getting to the customer. And my belief, honestly, from talking to the employees is that, and I'm not going to say any specific dispensary does this because I don't know which ones. I'm not going to name anybody. But I think a lot of these dispensaries are fixing the test. They're taking product for lab testing, cleaning that product.
Shopping is well known. I mean, that's
but
that's
even beyond lab shopping, we're talking about cleaning the test product. They clean it. They kill the mold. Yeesh. They test the product. The product passes for mold. Then they sell the mold.
Well, that's lab collusion. That's also been well known in the industry.
Yeah, but the lab doesn't know. The lab, if the lab's are only testing a gram, and that gram has been cleaned and there's no mold on it, and then they go sell 50 pounds that have mold on it, that's not the lab's fault.
I don't know, Mike. I watched How to Fix a Drug Scandal on Netflix, so I can't believe anything from a drug laboratory in Massachusetts, like, ever.
Oh, I get it. I mean, I'm not saying that there couldn't be some issues with the labs, but I think that this problem is even beyond the labs. I think that if you have dishonest people at the dispensary and they're fixing the tests, it's easy to pass 1 gram to get that not to have mold in it. But it's a lot harder to get rid of mold than 100 pounds that you're pushing out the door.
Well, again, that's the thing. The more we complain about mold, the more they're going to lobby just to allow it. So there has to be a common sense consumer protection factor here. They would never allow this kind of practice to happen in agriculture that happens in cannabis every day. So we've got to take some of those common sense guidelines over. Again, marijuana has been regulated separately from everything else. If you want price controls, it's got to be written into the marijuana bill. It can't be, the regular price controls that are available for consumers. If you want antitrust, that's got to be written into the marijuana bill. Oh, you want lab testing? We have to develop a very specific lab test for that because we're not going to act like laboratories ever existed other than for this marijuana bill. Now, this is the thing, Mike. In 2022, it's time for cannabis to get incorporated into the rest of reality. We don't just need to legalize it. We need to incorporate it into the rest of society and our laws and the regular regulations on price testing, price gouging, and laboratory testing. It's pretty simple. Rather than reinvent the wheel every time we need to address something with cannabis, how about we incorporate cannabis into what we've already got?
We got a lot more comments tonight. Hold the mold is one of them. I'm wondering. I'm just looking through to see which ones we want to post right now. A lot of the same ones. Oh, here's one from Dawson. Tell Dawson. Oh no, we already posted that one. Posted the same ones over again. All right, we're good. We're good on the comments. We got a lot of comments, but I don't always want to post every comment. So we got Rod Weber. Yeah, but before we get to Rod, I want to say goodbye to Chris and Dawson. I want to thank you guys so much for being on the show tonight and contributing. And we'll look for you on social media. I know Dawson, you're on Facebook. We follow you there, and Chris, you're on Facebook as well. But Freedom is Green on Twitter. Is that
Freedom
right,
is
Chris?
Green on Twitter. Yeah, Facebook. I don't feed the Facebook monster anymore. I'm just up on Twitter. I guess I'm helping out old Jack. But find me at Freedom is Green. And thanks for having me. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you too, Dawson. You know what? I think Dawson wants to say something before he leaves. Dawson, what's up? You got a final word?
I just want to say Facebook is probably the best spot to find me. Either Dawson Julia or Maine Cannabis Coalition.
Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Dawson. It was an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much.
And good luck in your recovery.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're the Young Jerks. That was Chris Goldstein, and we had Dawson Julia on earlier. We had Lauren, but I think she's sick, and now her husband is here. He's pointing. What are you pointing at? Can't unmute guests because they chose to mute themselves. Rod doesn't want to be on the show, and Lauren's sick, I guess. I don't know. I can't remove the mute. Yeah, I don't know. Unmute Mike. You need to unmute the mic, Rod. But I guess Lauren's sick. We're just going to remove Rod completely, unless she's coming back. Is she coming back? All right. We got Lauren coming back. I did want to do another segment with Lauren, talking about a couple different things here tonight.
Yeah.
Lauren, are you back?
Yeah.
What the hell's going on? Why do you got your husband sitting in and pointing at me and not talking? What is going on?
My girl just called me from prison.
Oh.
So I had
that's what we want to talk about right now,
exactly.
too, actually.
So it was
before we get there, I want to talk about the.
I was trying to hold the line. Sorry.
You were holding the line. You did a good job, Rod. Rod did a good job. I'm cranky because there's been a lot of technical issues on this show.
Yeah.
We had all these videos lined up and they just kept crashing. So that ruined the beginning of the show. And then Dawson's sound was kind of bugging me. I got to be honest. I love the guy and I'm glad he came on, but it's you know how it is with me. I get annoyed easily, don't I?
Yeah.
You've done a show with me a long time. You know how annoyed I get sometimes.
Or Herb. He always took it.
See, back then I had someone to yell at. I could yell at Herb producing the show and blame everything on Herb, and it would be fine. But now I'm running the show, so it's kind of I can't yell at. I guess I can yell at myself.
It's
all right. So it is. It was good theater to yell at Herb. That was always the go-to.
Yeah.
He's such a good guy too. He'd get the worst thing though. You'd feel bad because he'd get really upset. Like then we'd be like, Herb, we'll smoke you up after.
Yeah.
But let's get to the next. We got a few different headlines we want to get to. One is Boston police are apparently protecting January 6th cops that were either insurrectionists or supporters of the insurrection. I'm not surprised. Are you? I mean, have you seen this story?
I've seen the story. I don't know those cops personally, but given what I've seen from other cops and their Facebook posts and things like that, I'm not surprised.
I mean, this is another thing. Like, what do we do about cops who are, January 6th insurrectionists? They're, just like the Rage Against the Machine song. Those who burn crosses are the same. The same who march
some
forces.
Of those who work forces are the same.
There we go.
Crosses. Turns out that was absolutely true.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is. That is, I guess I've gotten old and jaded in the past 10 years I've known you, and I'm just like, yeah, surprise, surprise, that'll happen.
And we're hearing that Boston firefighters too. That there's also an issue. We're getting some photos sent in about firefighters with Oath Keeper stickers on their vehicles. This is definitely going to become an issue. I think if you're a mayor or city councilor anywhere, you should be asking questions about this. What are they doing to, root out bad cops who are, January 6th supporters, for instance? That should definitely be done. I know that a lot of other cities and towns have dealt with it, but Boston always seems to cover it up. They always seem to not do anything. The police union seems to actually run the Boston Police Department. It's very troubling.
So the one little glimmer of hope in this is the fact that Rachel Rollins has been sworn in as a U.S. attorney in Massachusetts, which is a federal position. And if there were cops involved in the January 6th insurrection, that is a federal offense. So it is more likely that investigations can be opened by Rachel, hopefully, on Boston police officers who were violating federal law by storming the Capitol.
Now, there's also a glimmer of hope, I think, in the new mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, who we both met, and you actually interviewed her like right before she was elected mayor. Do you think that she's going to be harder, kind of crack down on the Boston police with a lot of the scandals that have happened over the last years? Or do you think that she's going to have to play ball with them to survive?
I believe that she wants to crack down, and I believe that is her intent. I also know how the Boston Police Department runs the city. And I think it's already been incredibly hard for her to even enforce things like mask and vaccine mandates among, first responders and cops. You see that Boston Police Department was letting protesters park in police spots at the city hall to go kind of disrupt her announcement of vaccine and mask mandates. And so there's going to be so much pushback. The only thing we can do is stand behind her on this, because anyone who's having non-consensual contact with people, which is what cops do, need to be, their health, or they need to be getting the vaccine, wearing masks and all this stuff, and they don't. And it's a political issue. They're doing it because of a political issue. This is, and so we're seeing this pushback, and we're seeing, threats, harassment of her staffers, racist statements from the right, people who don't even live in Boston, sort of this mass attack on Michelle Wu and her supporters for basically trying to do the right thing. So I think that it's going to be incredibly hard for Michelle Wu to hold the Boston Police Department accountable, given the power they have. But I truly hope and I believe that she intends to do that.
That was excellent. I agree 100%. That was very nuanced. I like that.
And, I just hope that she is able to protect herself. Quite frankly, I don't trust these people. I know who they are, and I know what they're like from, years of personal experience. I fear for her safety, quite frankly.
So we've been talking about cannabis a lot tonight, and now we're starting to talk about some local issues. I've been talking to Saskia from Mass Recreational Consumer Council, just about the cannabis issue, about restorative justice, what that means. We got them, just basically a little bit about their group, kind of on our ticker right now. Mass Recreational Consumer Council at MA Consumers, established in 2017, Black and brown women queer-led political organization in solidarity for racial healing and transformation. So I definitely think people should support them. We're going to highlight some other groups too that she really supports and thinks do good work. I know that you also have had some experience with some of the groups that she suggested. So that's what I want to kick off the discussion on. But one of the things going on, let's put this group up. This is one of the groups that Saskia liked. They have a Twitter at Justice Healing, Families for Justice as Healing. It's at Justice Healing on Twitter. They are leading a campaign to end the incarceration of women and girls in Massachusetts, and stopping the new $50 million women's prison. Hashtag no new women's prison. Now, Lauren, you've been in prison for drugs. which I think is bullshit all the way around, knowing you and what you went through. One of your friends right now is suffering a similar fate, it sounds like. Where do you want to kick off on this and kind of jump into it? Do you want to talk about the women's prison? Or do you want to talk about your friend? Do you want to talk about just restorative justice?
Oh God, it's hard to know where to start. One thing I do really love this group, Families for Justice's Healing, as well as the National Council for Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. I am not a particularly active member because I have a stupid day job, but I also have been out there at rallies in front of the Suffolk County House of Corrections and have been supporting all the campaigns to free the women who are incarcerated and deserve either, early release or a retrial, as well as the fact that there are so many women who just don't belong there, such as myself when I was there, and such as my friend who is there now. And generally, nobody should be locked up for drugs. Nobody should be locked up because they're a drug addict. That doesn't do anything for anyone. People should be home with their families. And, another thing to bring up is that a lot of women that are doing time right now are locked up because they are ICE detainees, and because they are not talking on their boyfriends. Not talking.
They're not snitching. They won't snitch on their boyfriend.
Yep, they're locked up. They're locked up for not talking, even though they are supposedly supposed to have some kind of Fifth Amendment right. But they twist your arm and lock you up and force you. And if you don't comply, you are forced to choose between love and a heavy sentence. And this is all. A lot of this is drug related. And if we could really end the drug war, this would. A lot of this problem would be resolved. I believe that, and in terms of the 50 million for a new women's prison, that's a number that they're drawing up now. But we remember the Big Dig. We remember other development projects for things. It's not going to be 50 million. It's going to be 100. Like when it comes down to it, when they start building and all this stuff. So it's so much taxpayer money going into something we don't need. That should be going into rehabilitation programs, halfway houses, community education, and support. Because generally, especially when it comes to women, I'm not saying not to free a bunch of men as well for drug crimes, because I believe that should be done as well. Generally, the best thing for women is to be home with our friends and family and our community. And what happens, especially in women's prison, is that there's no jobs training. There's no like college program, there's nothing rehabilitative or restorative about it. It's completely punitive and traumatic. And the way we talk about incarceration is so backwards still, even after things like criminal justice reform, that it's been extremely healing for me to follow groups like Families for Justice's Healing and the National Council for Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, because they understand what's actually happening the way that only people who have been through it can.
And it's the National Council is at the Council US on Twitter. You can follow them. They're the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls, which, we're talking about the $50 million state, new state prison for women that they want to build in Massachusetts. And just following their Twitter, just checking it out and checking out Andrea. What's Andrea's name? She's one of the founder of the
Andrea James.
Andrea James.
Yeah,
she's the founder of the Council US. And it's very interesting that they note that the largest rising demographic in prison right now is women. And to me, that's like that should be a major problem for everybody. Like the fact that we're jailing record amounts of women, that's even like Andrea says in her, I was want to play a video from her, but I'm afraid to play video tonight because the video was crashing. So we're going to stay away from that. But, in a lot of their discussions and talk, they said, yes, the drug war, obviously, but it's even way beyond the drug war. Like this should be such a symptom. It should be like, the doomsday clock, when we need to build a $50 million prison, not for men, for women in the state of Massachusetts. It's supposedly a highly educated state, there's a lot of problems. There's something wrong with society when we're jailing records amount of women. Like, women shouldn't generally be jailed. Like,
Right.
I understand there's some cases where, she killed her husband, or there's some evil women out there, but in general, it shouldn't even get to that. And in general, we need to figure out, how do we stop women? How do we stop putting women in jail? Like, how do we stop? Like, even jail in itself, it shouldn't be like the first option how to fix things is throw someone in jail. And especially women and girls. Like, that just, like, what are we doing?
So, I mean, there's a very simple solution, which is to stop throwing women in jail. I think, I've always felt this way. As soon as I got out of Framingham, I knew that if I went back and opened the door and let everybody else I was there without, society would be at no less risk. In fact, it would be healthier, because all anybody talked about was their families and their kids. That's all everybody wanted. And, some people had drug problems, and, they deserve treatment and help and other options and other things to do with like the same way that I recovered was through having other things to do with my life, having a supportive community like you and, EMF and everything that I was involved in. I'm so privileged to have had that. And I think that we should have programs and opportunities for people with drug problems in order to actually do real restorative justice. I do understand that Framingham is falling apart. I was there. And it is. I, in fact, contracted Giardia there when I was there, and I still struggle with the repercussions of that today. It's a parasite from the water. So, there is so many health problems that you see that happen to people who don't deserve it, especially given that, generally, here's the thing. Also, when we hear about who's in jail, a lot of times on the news, or who's going to jail, like these cases, we hear about murderers and rapists.
The worst ones. You hear about the worst ones. Yeah.
But you don't hear about the person who, got caught driving drunk a couple too many times, and now they have to do this thing in prison instead of getting maybe help for alcoholism or whatever's going on in their life that's causing them to do this. You don't hear about the person who was caught just simply possessing too much where they overdosed on it, as was true in my case, who is now...
Which was you. Yeah, that was you.
That was me. And are now forced to do time based on these mandatory minimum laws, where, in fact, sometimes when they're sentenced, as in the case of my friend, have been clean for 2 years and started going back to college and getting their life together. And now they have to go to jail and serve a sentence, which really just costs the entire state money and helps no one. In fact, there's a COVID outbreak running rampant in all prisons and jails in all of Massachusetts. So anyone new coming in is forced into solitary. I only received the phone call from my friend tonight because they are finally out of solitary, which they have been in for a week and a half upon arrival without any misbehavior or anything on their own. It's just because they don't have the staff or the resources to deal with the COVID pandemic. And also, I don't think the mask or vaccine mandate is being enforced right now. And, you just shouldn't be locking people up in a pandemic in the first place. It's just the whole thing's completely ass backwards. And so I have so much to say. I'm running rampant, but absolutely, the National Council for Incarcerated Women and Girls, or formerly incarcerated women and girls, as well as the Families for Justice's Healing, as well as the Mass Bail Fund and the Court Watch, ACLU, a bunch of other.
Court Watch is awesome.
Yeah,
I love Court Watch.
When I ask them for something or information on something, they get it. I really appreciate them. It's just that it's so entrenched in our society that, you got to send people there to do their time, pay their debt to society. No, society pays a debt to keep them there. And that money would be better spent to help them get on their feet.
Yeah.
Why do we
have, make sure that the next person doesn't have a problem? Another thing that happens a lot too with the judicial system, I've noticed over the years, is people have mental health breakdowns. They go off their meds or have a psychotic episode, and sometimes really horrible stuff happens. But instead of realizing this is a mental health issue, the judicial system treats it like you premeditated hurt that person. And they throw these people in jail for things that they did when they we're having a a schizophrenic break. I mean, this is
not
this is
only
what
that,
you don't hear about on the news. Like you said,
right?
you don't hear about those cases on the news. You
And-
just hear about the most heinous, child molester, murderer.
Right.
That's what you hear. So
And
you think
those-
everyone will, yeah, go ahead.
That's like such a small percentage of people who are incarcerated right now. There's people who are incarcerated and are victims of poverty, I would say, or victims of a bad environment that they were brought up in or raised, in when they, and so I'd say victims of poverty, desperation, drug abuse, drug use, all these things. The other thing is that we actually lock people up for mental health breakdowns in Massachusetts, as well as drugs issues. In Massachusetts, we have a thing called Section 35, which is basically somebody in your family can plead to the state and family court that you are a drug user and need to be given forced treatment. However, there are not enough treatment beds available in actual rehabs. I've been to one of those rehabs. They're just like jail light. It's not really great rehab, right? It's actually completely unconstitutional because there's no way to defend yourself. It's not a regular court system. And in fact, people locked up in the Suffolk House of Corrections over the past year have died who were not there for committing any crime. They were there because their family were desperate and had no other option but to file a Section 35 on them. This is only available in 2 states.
That's crazy. Like, I understand some people are going to come back and say, well, what do you do if you have a drug addicted son or daughter and you can't control them and they're going to die? So you throw them in jail to clean them out. Well, how about the state of Massachusetts invest in treatment?
Right.
So you don't have to throw someone in jail. You can send them to treatment. I mean, this is what we're talking about. Reduce the harm. Jail is not a way to reduce harm. It increases harm. We're talking about restorative justice. I was, talking to Sonia, Saskia, excuse me. And, just looking at what restorative justice, it's don't cause additional harm.
Right.
Like, it's very simple. Like, try to correct things, try to fix things before they become a problem. Like, this is not rocket science, And I asked her directly, I said, you have these 2 groups, the National Council, and you have both of these groups that we were just talking about. The other one is, I'm forgetting the name.
Families for Justice's Healing.
Thank you. Family for Justice Healing. And I said, you have social equity, you have big cannabis, you have all these cannabis dispensaries who are supposed to do good for the community, who are supposed to be investing, who are supposed to take some of these proceeds back and help. And it's like they give millions to the cops, but none of the money goes to those 2 groups. No money's going to the National Council. No, none of it. It's infuriating. It's just like, if we can't support women, incarcerated women, like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and I believe there is one good, like, sort of halfway house type of program that helps. I forget what it's called, but it's done great things because they, help them get jobs or funding for school and different things. And it's like, a good community where women support each other, and it's a great model for something that the state can do for far less than $50 million is buy up a few more properties and have a few more places for women to go that are, supportive halfway houses type of environments for, substance use issues or other issues where, when you go to prison, you don't see a psychiatrist for a month. So you're having a mental psychotic breakdown. You're more likely to get sentenced or get sent into the hole for having that than you are to get medication in time. In fact, they restrict a lot of medication they can give you for this stuff anyway. And so it's a huge rigmarole for even a completely, let's say you're an innocent person with no drug problems that just somehow got, steamrolled into prison and you're like, an upstanding member of society. It's still going to be hard for you to get anything, let alone somebody who has mental issues. And we need to have more systems and support in place in Massachusetts to help people that are actually going through these real problems that, when taken care of, they can be, happy, even if not productive, safe members of society where people love them. It doesn't matter whether you are productive or this or that. That shouldn't matter. What matters is that, okay, you're not a risk to the population. You're just you and you're okay. That's all we need.
You're a person too. I mean, that
Yeah,
should be human rights. Like,
exactly.
to me, you're like the poster child for it, Lauren. Because
Yeah,
like when you went to jail, I was like just like so angry. I was
yeah,
angry. Like,
yeah,
why are they doing this to her? Like, it just didn't make. There's nobody who was harmed by you. You were having issues. You're a great person. I'm glad that you're all clean and sober now.
yeah,
It's awesome. It was awesome to see you get out and really like do it right. Like you've really turned things around for yourself. You've always had a lot of promise. You've always been like a spark of joy for the world. You're like a net positive. Like,
thanks.
we said, even if you're not, it's still,
Right.
you're still a person, but you have all of this, like, you really are. Like, I just, it makes me angry. It really does what
Yeah,
they did to you. And that I know that they do this all the time to people. And it could be any of us. It could be me next week. I mean, I could do something crazy, stupid for a second. Who knows? I don't think I will. I'm not trying to
you
go to
don't have
jail.
to. You don't have to. You could just be
Yeah,
mad.
you don't even have to. Something could just happen to you. I mean, it happens every day of the week. Innocent people are in jail. We know that too.
Yep.
Lots of innocent people in jail. But again, you brought up that real. You don't get to see a psychiatrist for like a week or two in. They throw you right in the hole. If you have mental health issues, that's real harm.
I saw
That's
a
not
woman
helping someone.
when I
That's
was
making it worse.
when I was in Framingham. I saw a woman having a seizure. And the CO didn't realize that's what it was, so he went to restrain her. And when you have a seizure, you're flailing, and her fist happened to hit his face or something, and that was perceived as an assault. And she was taken to the hole for 30 days, and we were all pretty shocked and angry. But there's nothing we can do because it's extreme. There's no way for us to go defend someone else in there. The best we could do was when people were kind of arguing to like crack jokes at each other to defuse the situation. But yeah, I saw, it's like she's having a seizure. This is a medical issue. No, they're going to send her to the hole for punishment instead because she's having this like, mental or physical issue, and her fist happened to hit a big old guy's face. Like, oh my God, like she didn't hurt you. Shut up. Right. And this is like kind of common and like kind of not talked about, I think, in like this. I saw this. I witnessed this, right? And I witness things like this all the time. And I was not even there that long, but I was awaiting trial, so it was a whole mix of people. And actually, this is another thing to bring up is that most of the women that are incarcerated right now have not been sentenced. They are awaiting trial. Either they were denied bail, or they don't have the money for bail, or the kind of case it is they aren't allowed bail, or it's a bail violation, so it's automatic. So now they are being exposed at risk for COVID and forced to deal with this stuff without actually being found guilty of a crime. I can only think of it as a way that they go about trying to twist people's arms to take a plea. But at the same time, it's extremely dangerous and traumatic for everyone involved. I am only so lucky to have come out the other side happy and productive and fairly undamaged, at least on the outside, as I am, because of my friends and family. And not everyone has that. So we as a community need to be that for everybody.
Awesome. This is something I want to make. I want this to become an issue, like a campaign issue for governor. We're gonna have a governor's race.
Please, because you know what? So there's a bill to make a moratorium on the new women's prison. I actually have the name of it right here. It's the Jail and Prison Construction Moratorium Bill, S-2030 and H-1905. That's the S-2030 is the Senate bill. H-1905 is the bill in the House to put a moratorium on new construction of a women's prison. This is a huge waste of money. We can find other ways to decarcerate women. This isn't hard, and it's be cheaper. But the problem that I'm very concerned about is that I know that Charlie Baker would veto this. I know.
Oh, definitely. No doubt.
He's already said as much. He's already, rubber stamped the plans for it. And that's why this bill is still being fought for. So we need to have a governor that will actually stand firm on decarceration and criminal justice reform, but like in a even better way than previously. So Charlie Baker, or a governor who stands on who has the same stance as him on prison building. Oh, well, Framingham's falling apart and women get Giardia. We need to build a new one and give all these money to developers.
That's a good question because in the Democratic side, we're all waiting for Attorney General Haley to announce that she's going to run. and she's basically a cop. And I guarantee you, she will support that prison being built.
Yes.
She won't support the bill veto it. But I wonder about Sonia Chang Diaz. I think we have a shot with her.
Yeah, I agree. And this is one of the things that oftentimes people forget. Oh, it's the Republicans that are doing this. No, it's really not.
Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, mostly Democrats. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly Democrats. And it's actually women Democrats. You look at remember Martha Coakley? Remember Marion Ryan, even Marion Ryan, remember Carmen Ortiz. Like I can the worst DAs and the worst elected officials were women Democrats because they look at somebody and say that person could have sold my kid drugs. Or went through like they want to be harsh. I'm not.
Yeah, they want to be tough. They don't want to be I'm a weak woman. I want to be as tough as the guys are.
Rachel has been a sort of counterexample, which I appreciate. But generally, even if you talk to Republicans, they aren't really that into locking women up.
Interesting. I wonder if Jeff Deal. I wonder what Jeff Deal's going to do on this.
Why waste? You always say why waste taxpayer money on it? Like,
right. I mean, I just look at it like. Framingham is a women's jail, right? Framingham, is that what you said?
It's a women's state prison run by the DOC.
The women's state prison is Framingham. It's falling apart. They want to replace it. I have a better idea. Let's just close Framingham and replace it with nothing. Let's replace it with, like what you said, halfway houses and drug treatment, mental health, all the services that people don't have, get people jobs and training and give them money. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a small amount of people who are still, violent women who we can't let out. Maybe 1 out of 100.
There's
but
probably
come on.
Those ones, I mean, from what I know, are probably extremely mentally ill type of people who are better off in some sort of state prison type of hospital. Or state hospital if necessary, or given some sort of treatment. But I feel that the majority of women I've met in Framingham could easily be let out, even the ones awaiting trial. Just let them out on bail. Come on, guys.
I know, it's ridiculous. It really is.
And there's and then half of them are just undocumented people.
And this doesn't even register politically. Like you never hear discussion why are we going to build a women's prison? Shouldn't we be closing? It's just insane. It just doesn't make any sense to me. That should be that we're having to build a new women's prison. That should be some kind of litmus test on, there's something wrong here. This isn't right.
Yeah. There's also the issue of the prison guards, COs, whatever. It's a union, much like the police union, and they are guaranteed jobs and pensions. So they need to have a job to do. And, we used to joke when they were acting like jerks that, I would always make the joke with other women I was in with that, okay, so don't get mad at them. They're crazier than us. They chose to be here. They're locked here with us and they chose it. Oh, and I'm not saying they're all awful people. But I am saying that there is an incentive that they want to continue to have job security. And that is probably part of what is pushing this new prison construction forward, as well as developers that want to make money.
Right. And I think the politicians, they kowtow to those people with jobs in prisons, because those people make political contributions.
Yeah.
So I think Attorney General Healy is probably going to be taking some checks from the prison unions.
Yes.
I'm just guessing.
Yeah, no, I have no doubt of that. I think we need to have somebody very progressive and very interested in this sort of reform. I think from what I know of Sonia Chang Diaz, that seems like the best bet right now. Who knows who else is going to jump in the race, but that I've been mostly happy with what she's had to say, though she hasn't spoke on it too much. It's a lot of questions to bring up going forward. And I do hope to have the time to work with the National Council as well as Families for Justice Healing more in the future, especially given that I have a friend suffering right now. Actually, I want to show you, I made this bracelet with my friend who's currently incarcerated the night before she went in for her sentence. She's an artist. I'm not going to say her name for privacy. Here, it's actually a watch. Why can't I show you on my camera? I don't know how to.
I don't know.
I don't know how to align it.
Turn it.
It's a spot. See, so it's
turn your whole body around. No,
I know.
That looks nice.
I don't know.
So that works. I can see it.
The flowers on the watch.
Oh, it looks pretty.
And
Yes.
I will wear this until she gets out. She's an amazing, beautiful artist in person who has like recovered so much. And I'm so happy to have my friend back. And I feel so angry they're taking her away. But this is our meditation on time. And, you know, for each, we also made one with Rod. It's actually, if you can see, it's a can of soup. It's actually like a pocket watch. It's soup for my
Campbell
family.
soup.
Soup for my family.
Nice.
And so, you know, we did that the night before, and it's like we're like literally like making arts and crafts like Girl Scouts, having dinner with her family, talking to them about what to expect. And like, it's just such a waste of money. And she's just an example of an extremely like sort of privileged case, whereas other people, I would love to make arts and crafts with them too. And I want, you know, like this is normal, like healthy stuff. And this is what people need. This is what people need for healing and support, and not being locked away behind bricks. So, you know, it's just terrible. And so I feel, as a formerly incarcerated woman and as somebody who knows others, that this is just, it's really, really due time for us to rethink the entire thing. The criminal justice reform bill was really good. That was passed in like 2018. It left a lot of people out in terms of the mandatory minimums. It left me out and it left her out. So there, you know, needs to be
more work to be done.
There's so much more work to be done. And I want to give a shout out to Jamie Eldridge, because he's actually doing the work, and I see him fighting a lot for stuff like this and calling a lot of other prisons to
he goes to the prison. He shows up, Tommy Hodgson, you know, and calls out the prisons and the conditions. I definitely want to keep your friend who's incarcerated. I hate to say thoughts and prayers like the Bible thumping conservatives, but that's kind of how I feel. We're gonna keep her in our thoughts, and
you know, I use this as like a Star Trek communicator watch. Like every morning, I'm like, Sarah, come in. Can you read me? And I send her like secret messages, like, and I try. And then when she calls me later, I'm like, did you get my message? What word was it? We're like playing psychic games and stuff. Like,
does it work?
I don't know. I don't know. I just got the call. I forgot to ask her if she got it yet.
You gotta try that, because I've been watching the videos about the remote viewers and the government. Did you ever?
We're both really into that kind of spooky.
Yeah, have you ever? Are you into that remote viewing? Yeah, you know about that.
Both of us are. So, you know, like
it's funny that the government did experiments and they realized it worked.
Yeah. So
and they were like, we don't know why it works, but it works. Remote viewing. And then some senior guys were like, "No, we don't. We think this is junk." And they just like they were like religious by it, like they were like, you know, Bible thumpers, and they were like, "We think this is the devil, so we're gonna shut this program down." The government concerned about being the devil. I don't know. It's kind of strange.
Well, you know, I mean, and Alex Jones wasn't even around yet, right?
Yeah, right.
No, we're doing experiments and trying to just have fun with it. And I'm just praying that like there's some sort of COVID leniency that comes along soon, because I feel like that is because of the understaffing and the amount of just chaos going on. If you look at what's happening in Framingham or in Suffolk House of Corrections, it is a nightmare right now of COVID. And hopefully they just start, all right, spitting people out, because the best place people can be is at home with their families.
Definitely. And I think we got it all in. I mean, you even got you made sure that we mentioned Alex Jones, which I always mention like 5 times a show, and I hadn't gotten him in yet.
Yeah.
The movie.
Bill Hicks is Alex Jones.
Yeah, the FBI.
For anyone that doesn't know. What is the FBI knows him? They know about it. What do they think he's Bill Hicks is Alex Jones? They literally
said that to Rod when they like knocked on the door and started.
I wonder if he's not working with the FBI.
All right, hold on.
Oh no!
Oh no!
So, now Rod's got to jump in. Like Rod's listening.
You have summoned me. This is the thing. When I was raided by the FBI, along with my film crew at the time, they said that Alex Jones was the reason that they came there. And then you can watch on the Joe Rogan Experience.
No way.
Directly after that, Alex Jones admits to working with the Secret Service. Not only that, there's a ton of video of him suggesting the same things which the FBI agents say when they came to the house, which was raided. Anyhow, it's your show.
I have no doubt on that too. That's very interesting.
Also, Samson did say to me last time we intercepted his protest that he will no longer work with law enforcement anymore.
Not anymore. I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't trust Alex Jones either. It's so funny. If you go back to New Hampshire, the Harry Brown, do you remember the Harry Brown, the Brown family? They were the tax protesters. No. They did a standoff with the feds about their home that was being seized in New Hampshire. I think, yeah, a husband and wife. I think
was it like a Ruby Ridge thing?
Yeah, but it didn't
man.
get. It could have got violent, but it didn't in the end because Alex Jones's crew showed up. And the Browns turned around after they were jailed and said that Alex Jones's crew were the ones that like tipped off the FBI where the guns were and went to, basically implicating Alex Jones's crew and setting them up to get arrested peacefully by the FBI. So, I mean, this stuff has gone around Alex Jones for years, and I would not be surprised at all.
Okay.
Disinformation agents.
Yeah.
I didn't mean
to
get
do you know about Hal? Do you know about Hal Turner?
Yeah, I was part of that. So
you were a part of that.
Yeah,
For people who don't know, Hal Turner was a very much like Alex Jones. He's a right-wing, crazy conspiracy theorist podcaster, and he got in a fight with some anonymous people.
Yeah.
And the anonymous people hacked him, and they read his emails, and they discovered that he was an FBI informant working for the feds.
Yeah.
And at the same time, this guy Hal Turner went crazy on the feds and on some judges and threatened to kill judges and all this. And the FBI actually threw their informant in jail. And the informant, basically Hal Turner, tried to use that as his defense, but it didn't work. And he said, I don't know if he's been released or he's still. Do you know? Is he still in federal jail?
I don't know what happened to Hal Turner. I know that there were packages full of sex toys sent to his home, at least at the point that I was paying attention to it. And I know that his audience was not too pleased that he was an FBI informant. I don't know the extent that Alex Jones is one. I feel like he is a bad enough person anyway that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I mean, it's like Whitey Bulger was bad enough. It didn't matter if he was working with the FBI or not. It's kind of the same way.
Thing, I actually, I don't. This is a weird thing to say, but I listened to QAnon Shaman calling into the Andy Callahan show. Remember that QAnon Shaman guy?
I know who he is. Yeah.
This is a mentally ill person.
He's what?
This is a mentally ill person.
Yeah, Jake. That kid, Jake Angela Janelli or whatever.
Yeah, he's being incarcerated for a very long time while being completely batshit insane. And I'm not sure. He was the loudest and the most boisterous and the biggest horns or body. He's he was the token, right? And but then when you listen to this call, you realize this person is absolutely nuts, and this is a situation where in a way, who you have to blame the person who directed them to do this thing, who coached their, and incited that more so than this completely batshit person.
Exactly.
And so even people like that, and I'm not everyone's going to agree with me on this because I'm not a fan.
No, I'm with you on this though. I mean, I don't think the Q shaman is blameless. I think that he did some things that were, when you look at the record and what he actually did, it wasn't good. He made some threats and things, but I agree with you. And I think that a lot of people, it's so funny because they call, you see them on Facebook all the time. They call us sheeple. They're like, oh, you got the shot. You're a sheeple, or you're brainwashed. You're afraid of everything. And it's like, no, you're afraid of everything. You're so afraid you listen to Alex Jones. You're so afraid that you follow Donald Trump's every word. You're so afraid you think that, it's so weird because so often they're being set up. The people like Alex Jones, they're looking for the craziest person in their audience. And I'm not saying that Alex Jones definitely does this, but there are people out there that do this in that field. The conspiracy theory field, the right-wing field. They will find the craziest person, and then they send the FBI their info. They said, this guy just said he was going to do this to whoever. Here's the email. And that's what Hal Turner was doing. He got caught doing it. And so I would caution a lot of these right-wingers and conspiracy theorists out there. The person that you're following on YouTube or Twitter could be trying to set you up on FBI charges. And that's what you should realize. They are getting paid to find the craziest person in their audience and send their info along to the FBI. That happens a damn lot, and people need to wake up on it.
Yeah, and I think that's also probably happening on the left, not, in my personal experience, but just in general, if they're driving to the crime and they're a Fed, if they're driving to the crime and they're a Fed, if you don't know much about them and you can't get there without them, if they're driving to the crime and they're a Fed.
Yeah.
So, don't take the bait. Don't throw the Molotov.
Be suspicious.
Yeah.
Like for me, I came from the cannabis space. So, there was a woman that came to a mass can meeting way back in the day, and she was the cutest school teacher. She wanted me to get her some cannabis, and none of us would, because we didn't know her like that.
Right.
This is just, and this happened all the time. This happened every month. And this is the way that, because we knew that cops would send people in every once in a while
and it's
to test you.
Nothing personal. And she should understand that if she's not.
No, yeah, exactly. It said, you could be a cop. I have no idea. So I'm not taking the chance.
That's the kind of thing that I would understand.
And people need to think about that with who you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, including us. But we're not asking you to do anything crazy. We're not asking you to believe in anything crazy. We're not asking you to do things that will harm your life with, be an insurrectionist.
I am asking you to call your state reps and state senators to support SRS 2030 and HR. Hang on. Call your local state rep and state senator to support the new women's prison moratorium bill, which is S 2030 and H 1905. So that's Senate 2030 and House 1905 to support the moratorium on new jail and prison construction. That is the craziest thing I'm going to ask you to do tonight.
And I'm going to do it. Like I'm doing that. I am definitely doing that. And, we got some good comments coming in. Great topic and show is one. Someone else said, comment on marijuana addiction and cannabis hypermesis syndrome. I don't really want to comment on that now. We've gone beyond cannabis at this point, especially something like that. But then Patrick writes, the same person writes, I was part of the Hal Turner thing too. And he's got more comments. I want to read this one. He says, I think he was actually insane in addition to being, as his lawyer said, in association with the FBI. He's talking about Hal Turner. I think you're probably right, Patrick. I think Hal Turner probably was a little insane. Yeah.
I think associating with the FBI will drive one insane.
Possibly.
I think that's part of their modus operandi.
Might want to see my thing.
Another comment was, can judges not sentence people to rehab in the U.S.?
Only in 2 states. I forget the other state, but Massachusetts has Section 35, which is like a family court thing. And there is no defense. Somebody in your immediate family or, your partner or you live with can file a Section 35 complaint on you, and you are forced to go to a state-run rehab, either MOTSI, Men's Addiction Treatment Center, or WATSI, Women's Addiction Treatment Center. However, if they do not have beds available at those, you are still sentenced to do your rehab, and that will be in a prison or a jail.
And now some people are talking about doing this to the homeless folks over at methadone, what they call methadone mile.
Yeah.
They want to take the homeless and put them in jail too, which is just awful.
They stopped that weird fake court they had going on there. However, I believe they have all been swept as of last night due to cold and stuff. And I think I think they're all in the hotel now temporarily, which is not, at least like a, rehab type of thing. I think this is not a permanent solution, but it is, and it's jarring and all that, but it's also like 9 degrees out. So I'd rather them be in a place with heating, and I would like for them to actually turn that hotel into some sort of supportive housing, but I want the moon.
Definitely. And we just got a really good comment. I'm going to read one of the last comments of the show. I guess I'll read off in a second. But before that, I wanted to check in on you, because you were, as we did an episode with you, and you're looking at possibly some federal charges. Has anything progressed on that lately?
I think right now I'm getting a COVID delay because I have not heard anything. I don't know if there's any new grand juries that have been, I think that I don't know. We are looking to do more press about it. We have spoken with a few actually pretty big outlets, and the problem is the case is so sprawling because of the fact that Creed followed Rod to Standing Rock. Like there's like, this is not just about
There's a
this
lot of
one thing.
details. There's a
There's
lot
a
of
lot of
details.
details, and a lot of them
A lot
are
of turns
not,
and twists.
yeah, and a lot of it is, it's no one's been indicted. There's no discovery. So it is tough to get some press about it. I am hoping that, they sincerely just decide it's a waste of time, because it is. Maybe somebody has their head straight and just wants to throw it off their desk and oh, forget it, this is bullshit. But I understand how the feds work. I will definitely keep everybody updated to the best of my ability, but for now I'm just enjoying every day I can.
Awesome. And again, and this is another example of how the criminal incarceration system screws up people's lives. Like you're getting caught up at another case, possibly with the feds, because they don't like your politics and they're using your previous arrest for drugs.
I didn't even do anything illegal. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, this is how they get you in the system, and they keep you in, and they keep bringing you back.
Yeah.
And this is why a lot of people don't want to get into politics or activism or advocacy, because they know oftentimes they're going to be a target.
I can't not. It's something I was born I'm sorry, I was born caring about people. So like, at a certain point I've gotten very belligerent, or just like, no, I'm gonna keep, they tried to silence me for so long. I stopped knocking on doors for Michelle Wu because I didn't want her to get, it felt like everyone that knew was getting knocked on. And like I was like quiet for so long, and it was like that's what they wanted, right? So I don't want to do that anymore. And if they want to make an example out of me, I mean, I'm gonna make an example out of them on my way down.
I was ready for the visit. I was like, the FBI are going to visit me. I knew they were, and they never did. Why? Like, I got calls from people who got visits from the FBI about you, who said they're coming to you. They told me, they said they're coming to your house next. And then they never did. And I'm like, what does that mean? Why did they not come because they're afraid, or are they waiting for something? Like, am I like, I don't know.
I think
it is a little scary.
I think that the misbehavior and malfeasance of these agents dies in the light. You shine a light on the on the disease, and it evaporates, right? It's so I think that
like cockroaches. You turn on the lights and they run.
And I think that they know who you are, at least I'm sure they do, and realize that you're going to be recording everything very openly and asking the right questions, and that would be
I would love it. I'm going to ask him about I'm going to ask him about Whitey Bulger. I'm going to ask him about Mark Rossetti. And I'm going to ask him about there's so many. I'm going to ask him about the New York serial killer that they had on payroll for decades. I'm going to ask. I just keep going. I'm going to ask him about the kid in Topsfield that created the Boston bomb that they let go. The Boston Marathon bomber, the guy who actually created the bomb that we think, and the FBI let him go. I'm going to ask him all about that.
It's so funny. It's so funny because half the people that know about this and we talk to feel the way you do. And then others are like, oh shit, are you embarrassing the Boston FBI right now? You are so screwed. Like they're going to drone bomb you from the sky. And I'm like, what?
And I get that. I get that feeling from people. Too, FBI is a powerful organization. They're so many attorneys and lawyers will say the two people you don't want coming to your door is the FBI and like the IRS. Like those are like the worst two. So I get
pay my taxes. And you know what? I know from other people who have been investigated recently that they are completely. We got away lucky because they didn't point guns at our head. That's all I got to say. They didn't point guns at our head or at our kids' heads. This time. And I know they pointed guns at the children of people I know for...
There's an echo. I'm hearing Rod in the background. So funny. Patrick McCannon writes, ask them about Tamerlan Zarnev, please. Of course I would. I would ask them about that. Definitely.
You can ask Agent Steve Kimball, who was actually knocking on our doors, who was actually testifying at his trial over comments and tweets made by this person that were actually referencing Key and Peele quotes from, Comedy Central skits. So yes, that is and Tosh.0. So yes, the exact same agents after us are the same ones. And I'm not saying that Tamerlan Zarnev was a good innocent guy. I don't, I don't care. But what I'm saying is this is their game.
And when they raided in 2016, they did point guns.
Oh yeah.
And I think that Tamerlan wasn't a great guy, but I think that he was an FBI informant. I think the FBI, he was working with the FBI and they covered it up. And I really do believe that.
We saw this after that with that other kid in Sudbury that was like they were sending him materials to build drone bombs or something. Like they were sending him like, explosives or something. Like he was mentally ill and they
You're talking about the kid in Topsfield. Daniel Morley is his name.
No, this was after that. This was somebody.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the bomber, the guy who actually.
No, this is actually after that. This is somebody completely different. It was a kid in Sudbury who clearly had mental problems that they, who was, I guess, supportive of sort of Muslim type insurrection and was, of Muslim Arab descent or something. And they targeted and they were, mailing things that he, as trusted allies, mailing things to this person, enabling them to do the crime so they could bust him, when really there was no actual contact with Hamas or any of these terrorists. It was all the FBI.
It's all the FBI setting it up.
And given some mental health treatment, maybe this wouldn't have been a crime in the first place. Like this could have been like taken care of in a reasonable way, when in fact they actually just made it into a crime to justify their own existence.
We got a good comment. This is the last comment I guess I'm going to read from the listeners. This is from a medical professional, I believe, Marion McNabb. She runs the Cannabis Center of Excellence. She writes, "Thank you both so much for your leadership in this talk. I learned so much and want to chat with you both as soon as possible to see if we can work together on harm reduction with cannabis interventions en masse as soon as possible. Thank you so much for your leadership."
As we always said, cannabis is an exit drug, not a gateway drug.
I hope more people in the cannabis space, especially these dispensary owners, they should be supporting Justice Healing, at Justice Healing, and the National Council, at the Council US. Yeah, and the Massachusetts Recreational Consumer Council. They should be supporting all three of those organizations.
Yeah.
Lauren, what do you... Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think everyone should come together, absolutely.
What do you want to leave us with tonight? Last thoughts, closing thoughts.
2020 The Dumpster Fire, out now on Apple TV, iTunes, and Google Play, and
YouTube. It will soon be on Amazon.
It will soon be on Amazon. It's on YouTube. 2020 The Dumpster Fire. Check it out. Leave a great review. Like and rate it, please. It will keep us in the algorithm.
We need more on Rotten Tomatoes.
And Rotten Tomatoes reviews. It's actually something we've been working on this, entire, I guess, 2 years now. And I'm not trying to make light of everything we spoke about, because we really just want to make this movie a success and then get funding for an even better documentary about more serious topics. So this is our phone door. Help us get there.
I guess I was dishonest. There was another comment that I'm going to read. Melissa McCluskey writes, "I'm going to watch it tonight."
Enjoy.
So have you guys had a lot of good reviews? You've had a bunch of screenings in movie theaters. I know that went really well, right?
Oh yeah, except when the cops showed up. That was fun.
What? Cops showed up at your...
The BBD showed up to our premiere at the Arlington Theater because, oh no, there's an Antifa party here.
Wait. You're in a city that's not Boston. You're in Arlington, Mass. A different town. I don't know
if he was a Boston cop or like a Fed. I can show you a picture.
So undercover cops basically showed up.
He wasn't that undercover. He had a clear wire and he was a bald guy in khakis. He wasn't in uniform, plain clothes. So what happened was we showed up because we had like a photo shoot before the premiere and this big thing. And so I guess the Boston Police Department called the Arlington Theater that was showing this premiere saying that there was some sort of threat because it was an Antifa movie and they had to be there. And I don't know whether they were implying to protect us or just to watch us. I do know 2 super happy, fun America people did show up that I thought had left that did end up watching it and left early, snuck in and out. They bought tickets, whatever.
So wait. The fascists came in and bought 2 tickets. Why? Why would they come in and pay?
They're just huge fans. I don't know.
Are they fans, or do you think they were trying to intimidate you? Like, what is that?
Well, I wasn't intimidated by them. I was more intimidated by the police. But
yeah, I want to hear about the fascists.
I offered the super happy people like a mat, like a free, dumpster fire mask. You want to take a photo with us? You're big fans, right? And they walked right out, and I'm like, yeah, I knew who you were.
I think it's like the AOC thing. They got a little crush on Lauren. They like Lauren. It's like these
exactly
Republican dudes who keep challenging her to debates and stuff. And
yeah, like But like they walk out with their tail between their legs, then sneak back in to watch the movie, which is fine. Actually, I wasn't that, all our friends know who they are. Like I wasn't worried about them. It was more the fact that I showed up and there's this bald guy in the corner wearing a clear wire on his phone that I don't know, and everybody else there I know. And then our producer or our sales agent's like, yeah, I guess the police were called because of a threat.
Do you want?
Unbelievable.
We have the Nazis review.
Yeah, the Nazis gave us a review.
Why don't you read that? We'll read this as a final closing chapter here.
It's insane.
It's really fun, actually.
Clearly, so these are the local fascist Nazis who are reviewing a movie.
Be sure
Go
to
ahead.
say, keep it politically incorrect because it's.
So 2020, the dumpster fire. This is from @Graphmaster. He made this account the next day to do this. I'm pretty sure I know who he is. I think he's the Assassin's Creed one.
Yeah.
I call them by their outfits. The movie opens with our hero conducting a fiery KKK-style attack against a mostly minority group holding a political meeting. It was at this point that I knew the film was going to be based and red-pilled, and I was not disappointed. The movie then brings us big fuck Joe Biden energy, exposing Biden while also taking a stand against Trump. It's an interesting strategy that is sure to be controversial. Well,
wait. Strategy. I don't think there's any strategy in this, but go ahead.
No, I mean, well, the strategy is we're calling out power. He's actually blown away by the fact.
I know. It just kills me. They think everything's about strategy. It's like, no. How about reality? Go ahead.
They don't have strategy. They don't know the meaning of the word.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The people who are the biggest nitwits of all are talking about strategy.
Well, not examining politics. The film is a mental health study. Our aforementioned Klan-esque hero spends most of the film struggling with his psychosis.
That's me.
The root cause, whether drugs or some other situation, is unknown and unfortunately unexplored in the film. We don't know why our hero is crazy. Our side characters are interesting, including an equally crazy mentor and a token Negro. The villains are compelling, but underexplored. Our hero speaks a lot about getting his ass kicked by various parties, and I wish we could see more of him getting beat up by the Proud Boys. The premiere itself was interesting, with the main characters seeming uncharacteristically flustered. All in all, out of 20, I give this one a solid 14.88. Would recommend. I eagerly await Dumpster Fire 2 Electric Boogaloo.
I feel like I'm going to go to hell for hearing that.
I know, right?
It's like Hitler just reviewed your movie or something.
And then it's like, oh no. And you know what's funny is I was like, literally, I didn't know who these people were who bought tickets, and I was like offering them, like, you want a photo shoot? Like just the same way I would, like, maybe there are fans I don't know. I kind of vaguely had a weird vibe, but I was trying to, like, honestly intimidate them with kindness, and I believe they were intimidated with kindness. They really walked
they
up.
don't know what to do with it. They don't.
I'm like, I asked their name. What's your name? And they looked at each other and they're like, John and Sean or whatever. Like they looked at. I'm like, oh well, do you want a free dumpster fire mask? Come take some photos with us. And they're just like, we gotta go.
They thought an Antifa was going to chase them out and they could have some kind of video or something.
Yeah,
Instead, they got someone being really nice to them.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so does your audience understand the significance and the hatefulness of the number 1488?
We don't need to get into that because we're closing the show. We do. A lot of people do. That's why I call them Nazis. Nazi fucks.
I honestly think that, maybe some minds were blown that night. Very small minds, but small minds can be blown nonetheless. And
88 is always a reference to Hitler. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, but I think that, we had a successful night despite the police presence and despite the fash presence.
Standing ovation.
We had a standing ovation. It was actually like the best party. Like I literally woke up the next day like, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to be this happy again. Like,
Awesome.
I can take anything at this point. That was great.
Congratulations. So I want to thank you again, Lauren, for being on the show tonight. It's like old times tonight.
I know, except I'm talking too much, but okay.
No, you're not. You were perfect. You did really good today. I probably talked too much.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I want to thank Chris Goldstein. I want to thank Dawson Julia. I want to thank Rod Weber, who's also been on the show tonight. He's the unbilled guest, I guess. Lauren's gonna. I think he might be in trouble with Lauren after the show. I'm getting those vibes.
No,
Yes?
he's
No?
good.
No.
He's
He's good?
actually been very good. He's been very good.
All right. He's good.
Why?
All right.
He's
We'll
been
just check
painting.
it in.
He's been finger painting in the basement.
She told me to come sit in for her. It was very confusing when she got up and
I got.
left.
Yeah,
Listen,
well,
I had to talk to
no
Sarah.
worries. It worked out. We gotta go though, because it's late. We've been on for 2 hours plus. So, and you were sick, so thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, it's okay. It's not COVID. I don't think.
I hope not.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I want to thank everyone for listening. We got one more comment. I keep saying I'm not going to read any more comments, but I will. Someone said, yes, congratulations, guys. You guys announced that you're married now. So congratulations on that. Congratulations on your movie. Oh, there you go. You get the kiss. This is perfect. And I want to thank all of our listeners, supporters, people who are sharing the show tonight and giving us reviews, the Young Jerks, on our podcast on iTunes and Spotify and all those other places. Thank you so much. If you haven't, please make sure you follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all those usual other places and iTunes. And if you want to send some money, you can do that as well. Anchor.fm/The Young Jerks, or you can go to our website, midnightmass.substack.com. I'm Mike Crawford. I want to thank again Lauren Pespisa, especially. She did 2 hours with me tonight. 2+ hours tonight. That's awesome. And I want to thank Chris Goldstein and Dawson. And I also want to thank Rod Weber for being a seat filler tonight.
Stop making it rain, Rod.
We're the Young Jerks. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Good night, Mike.
Good night.